what's up you guys? This is Rob from Gay Guy Plays, and today on the Quick Draw, it's all about being dressed to kill when we take a look at all of the Syndicate Syndanas. So for those of you who don't know, I've embarked on a bit of a project to nab every single one of the Syndanas available from each of the factions. Why? Honestly, I still have no clue. I tend to make bad life decisions, but I figured that this might be a bit of fun and maybe help out those who are wondering whether they were worth picking up. Now for those of you who weren't aware, each of the syndicates has their own unique Syndana, only available to their faction for 100,000 credits after they've reached rank 5. And sadly, Wallet Warriors, they are not tradable. So quick disclaimer here. Aesthetics are a completely subjective topic. These are merely my opinions, feelings, and criticisms that may or may not reflect how you personally feel. At the same time, I have a ton of respect for the people who actually have the skill to model these kind of things, as I certainly do not. But as you will very clearly see, I enjoy certain aesthetics more than others. Lastly, for those of you who are only here for reference's sake and not my charmingly vulgar demeanor, timestamps will be available in the description box below, so you can jump straight to the dangly bits that you're interested in seeing. It's kinda like skipping through the dialogue of a porno, don't feel bad. Now let's get started with the West Wing and heat it up with the Red Veil. Now for the newer viewers out there, I've said it about 1,000,000 times now. I'm not a big fan of DE's dangly bits. They do chains and cables well, but everything else just flops around like a flaccid penis, which is why I really like the Asita Rakta Syndana. It snaps to the back and almost looks like it's a built-in part of the Warframe. And it's made of blades! Who the hell doesn't like blades in a ninja game? The only thing I do have to criticize is the awkward fire jet that shoots straight out of the back of this thing. Now, this is going to be the only time you hear me say this, but it's too long. I would have almost preferred the jet itself be a bit shorter and have a little more girth to it. As for its special effect, the flame grows brighter on a stealth takedown. Note that it is very specifically a stealth takedown and not a stealth kill. I'm gonna be totally honest, the game is a bit rough when it comes to stealth takedowns. I'll either get a bunch at the very beginning or the very end of the mission, but that's about it. You can get tons with Loki and Ash, however you'll usually be doing that while invis, which means that you won't be able to see your Syndana whatsoever, making the special effect kinda pointless. Now, let's make a move for the money and take a look at the Perrin sequence. It's an elephant! Why in the world is the Secura Syndana an elephant? Now, I do my best not to criticize the art department because everybody's allowed to have their own creative point, but frankly, it's an elephant. Who the hell approved this? Honestly though, I think that if they just got rid of the dangly bit of energy, it would look a ton better. On the bright side, its special effect is actually pretty neat. If you look closely, the triangles are made up of a flowing energy current. As you pick up credits, the energy grows brighter and begins to fill in the gaps. The same goes for the trunk portion, but I prefer to pretend that that doesn't exist. Dangly bits aside, as compared to the rest of its syndicates, this is one of the easiest and most rewarding to trigger. Okay, now as for the least penis-influenced Syndana, let's get a little wet with the new Loka. So this is definitely a fairly interesting one. Much like the Red Veils, the Sancti Syndana looks more like it's built into the actual frame itself, which I love, and it's lacking any dangly bits, which I also love. And in addition, it's got a really interesting flower motif, complete with a squirting clitoris, which I don't love, as you can probably imagine. Okay, all vagina jokes aside, I actually really do like this Syndana a lot. The general shape of it is really cool and it fits well on some of the more ornate frames. Now, its special effect involves its sprinkling. The more abilities you use, the brighter its stream becomes. Now, this is definitely easy to trigger and is persistent through the end of the mission, but my issue with it is its energy color doesn't seem to match up with the actual sprinkling effect. It just seems to be an energy stream layered in with it, rather than causing the sprinkles themselves to glow. So you get this soft blue misted effect at the base, ejaculating whatever perverted energy color you decide to put in. I think that's a sign to move over to the West Wing and get rock hard with the Steel Meridian and all of their dangly bits. Now, I honestly don't know how I feel about this one. It's kinda like they deconstructed the jacket tag and added a couple hoses to it. Now, DE has been good with dangly effects on cords and hoses, and honestly, they look pretty good on the Vaykor Syndana. However, I do wish that the cords were a little bit shorter, as the bottoms do tend to fall below the screen, so that when its effects go off, you can't really see the fire erupting from it. Now, speaking of its effects, the flames on both both the back and the end of the hoses grow brighter when you take damage, and slowly dim once you stop. I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty disappointed in this effect. Not because it's a bad effect, but because of the fact that it has so much potential. It doesn't really feel half as obvious as some of the other Syndanas, even while under constant fire. Just a little more oomph and this would be one of the coolest triggers / effects out of the bunch. Now let's move on to one of our favorite floating boxes, Cephalon Suda. So I have to say that the Synoid Syndana is probably one of the most beautiful of the bunch, and matches the theme of holographic glowing box quite well. Due to the fact that this is more of an energy effect rather than a solid texture, it looks less floppy than some of its counterparts. However, I must say that I'm not necessarily fond of the Synoid Gamma Core's reused assets. I don't actually feel like they work all that well with the shape of the Syndana. So it's a very good thing that the Synoid Syndana looks sick on its own, because its special effect is going to be one of the more difficult to trigger. Its pattern illuminates every time you successfully scan an enemy. Now, while scanning isn't necessarily difficult, once you've reached the max scans per enemy, you're completely cut off. So for those of you who are quite diligent about getting your scans, you may eventually run out of ways to trigger its effect. However, I can confirm that for the rest of us lazy bums who use the Helios Sentinel to do the bulk of our scanning work, it definitely does trigger off of those. Alrighty, last but definitely not least, let's elevate ourselves with the Arbiters of Hexis. Can I just tell you that this is easily my favorite Syndana of the bunch. It looks like it's built into the Warframe model, the energy sword is graphically strong, there are no weird dangly bits, and it matches quite well with both the Ito and the Neighborous armor sets. The Telos Syndana also feels like it's just the right size, unlike the Vaykor, which looks a little small, or the Secura, whose effects are a bit on the larger size. Even its special effect is badass. The holographic sword pulses with energy after landing the killing blow on an enemy. However, more interestingly, it actually takes into account the type of kill you've made. An ability, primary or secondary weapon kill will simply result in the standard pulse. However, a melee kill will slowly cause the holographic blade to get bloodier and bloodier and does not fade out during the course of the mission. You begin to just barely see this effect at approximately 20 melee kills. After about 30 to 40 melee kills, it starts becoming quite apparent, and the full effect seems to cap out at about 100 melee kills. So all in all, I think the Syndicate Syndanas are a pretty fun addition. My ranking from bottom to top would be the Perrin sequence, then Steel Meridian, Cephalon Suda, New Loka, the Red Veil, and saving the best for last, the Arbiters of Hexis. So that does it for me. Let me know what your ranking looks like in the comment box below. Now, thank you all for watching this episode of The Quick Draw. For more Syndicate exclusives, be sure to check out the recut version of the Rakta Ballistica, and if you missed anything, I'll toss up a link to the entire Syndicate playlist. So be sure to do all the things I ask you to do at the end of every one of these, and as always, stay tuned for more dangly bit judging here at A Gay Guy Plays.
Your humanity is a beacon for all.
You know, ally to ally, maybe you shouldn't be so goddamn creepy. Like, what the fuck is wrong with your teeth?